We are?
Okay.
Yes,
There we
going.
Okay, so we have returned from our executive session. Apologies for the late return. We're going to go straight to the consent agenda. All items are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a member of the committee so requests, in which event the item will be considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. This is Section A, the minutes, Section B, and the warrants.
So I made an addition to the minutes. I don't know if people saw it. I changed it, not me. I didn't change the motion. I clarified that the motion was a little bit more specific than what was written in the minutes. So I don't know if everyone saw that, like.
I did see that. Did everybody else
I did
get to
not.
look at that?
I did not see the change, so.
Hold on.
It's missing.
I don't know.
Should not put you on the drive. Should put you on hard drive.
Are you in shared drive or
Share drives.
shared drive? Another
Shared
shared
drive
drive?
setting. You know what?
I'm
Well,
not.
you know what? It's not showing up now on my screen. Is it because I'm not an editor on the minutes?
It could be, or because, did you get online?
Yeah. Can you see my changes?
No.
No.
Oh, I'm a content manager. I can't do anything. You can't do anything either.
Okay,
why
so
don't
the
we just
motion was made
Why can't you see the
that
rest of
the
them?
committee vote to support the OLA going to the ARPA
That's all there
committee
is.
for funding, so long as there is $0.
Not higher.
I did send that to
written
them.
it,
Yeah, it was zero cost to the district.
Zero cost to the district.
And I had actually added that and it did not.
And then reconvening with the school committee once the ARPA committee makes their decision.
Absolutely.
That was the motion.
Yeah.
That's all right.
So let's just, as revised, just add that in.
As
I think
revised.
it's my tickets a week.
Okay, but do I revise it again?
How did she not?
Can you write it
Can you
down
right
and then
now?
just submit it
Is it
to
working, like, is
Lisa?
it working for you to revise?
I know.
No, you have to get permission for it.
Do you want to just email it to
Might be.
Lisa DeLuzio to make the change?
We'll let you make the
Yeah,
change.
and I swear she
Yeah.
accepted the change the other night. Okay, so that's the motion.
Okay, so we'll just approve it
Yeah,
as
so
amended.
email it to Lisa, and then she can,
Okay.
so are we in favor of approving with that change?
Can she have the folder?
Yeah.
Can she have the drive?
Yeah, so
Everyone's okay with
yes.
that?
Second
Okay.
us.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm just clarifying that everybody's okay with that.
Yeah.
They all are. They're all
So-
in the folder.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as
Amended.
amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Okay.
Thank you. All right, communications. Individual comments? Anyone? Go ahead.
So the Envisioning Future Holliston, we met last night and finalized our survey results in a presentation. I will be emailing that to you all by Monday. And the recommendation that we're making to town meeting will be to disband the Comprehensive Long-Range Planning Committee, because we've done our work, and to give the town administrator authority to hire a consultant to further our work to the next level.
And that's happening when? What did you say?
So I will have the presentation to you all on Monday, and then it will be a warrant article at town meeting, fall town meeting, Monday, October 17th, at the high school auditorium at 7 p.m.
Great. Thank you. Tom?
About 70 fourth grade students received their instruments on instrument distribution night. The middle school just cast its one-act plays. The high school, the Holliston High School band will start up at tomorrow night's home football game, 7 p.m. I believe, and auditions were held for Pippin, which is the high school musical that will be put on in November. And fall sports are underway. I think you caught the middle school cross-country meet.
Oh,
the other
yes,
day?
yes,
Yeah.
and there's over 100 students on the cross-country team, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, with 6th graders dominating in terms of numbers. And they had a very exciting and successful race yesterday, And actually, a sixth grader came in first, if I'm not mistaken.
Against
So-
Hopkinton.
Against
Right.
Hopkinton.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's Dawn, we got our trombone.
You're going to enjoy
The
that.
dog is scared to death.
Yeah.
The best place to practice is outside.
Yes.
Celebrate Holliston is September 24th, which is next Saturday
Yep, it sure is.
at the Goodwill Park. So 10 to 3, be there. Be ready to eat some chili.
Minnie?
Just on that note, in Celebrate Holliston, I will be performing.
Oh.
In case you want to come and watch, please do. So I actually have a question for Susan. There are a couple of concerns that I have received, so I would like you to address them. So there is this concern that how will the French immersion program be affected now that there is no world language coordinator? And then the concern is because there would be no continuity or vertical alignment. That's what the concern has been. There's another part to that question, but I will come to that later. Yeah, so if you could address that first.
Sure. So last year, we did not have a world languages coordinator. We just weren't unable to find someone to fill that position. This year, we reconfigured the curriculum team, and one of the roles was the world language performing arts. So we created 3 new roles, 3 curriculum coordinators. So we now have a full-time pre-K to 12 plus UA curriculum coordinator, and that person, Ida Pappas, you'll hopefully meet her soon when she comes to present. She's overseeing world languages and fine and performing arts and health and wellness. So she's been doing a phenomenal job diving in. In fact, today I was at Rams and she was meeting with the World Language Department, and she seems to have been well received by them. So we actually have someone pre-K to 12, and yes, she's overseeing other subjects as well, but she's a continuous person throughout the program. And then in addition, we always have had and still have one Montessori and one French immersion and one Montessori grade level leader that oversees at Placentino and at Miller. So they support all the teachers in their areas. We have grade level leaders by subject, by grade level as well. At the middle school, we also have a world language team leader. And at the high school, we have a world languages department leader. So now we have someone that's going to be in all 4 buildings to meet with all of those, but we still have those people within the buildings doing that work as well.
Thank you. There is a concern raised, of course, after your answer. I think it's kind of, but I'll still go ahead and ask it just to clear the air, is now or in future sometime the French immersion or the Montessori in any way on a chopping block?
Both programs are highly and well received in the community, and I think that's what makes us incredibly unique. I came here and I'm still shocked, and when I go to other districts, I say, how unique is it that we have not only, you do see some places that have French immersion, but to have Montessori and French immersion in a public school district is incredibly unique and something we should be proud of. However, what I would like to see us do even more offerings. So not to eliminate, but are there other offerings we could make? Maybe we could do more with Spanish immersion or something. So for me, it's not about eliminating, it's about are there other opportunities through our strategic plan that we might want to consider to have other equitable opportunities. But I don't see these 2 programs going away in this community for a long time, if ever, because I think that this is a wonderful thing to have in the community. So no, that's part of our equity audit, to see if there are things that we can add to versus delete.
Thank you. So yeah, that answers my question.
You're welcome.
Great. Anybody else? All right. Thank you. Moving right along. Presentations. Dr. Kuska?
Let me put this You just have to, sorry, why is it not going in? All right. Should it go up?
Sure.
I have to hit the screen. Nope, there it is. Nope, almost. It's thinking, why don't you touch the screen and see if it opens? As soon as he gets there. As soon as that's the one that's, oh, it's just slow.
Obviously, you don't need me tonight, so I'm retired.
1 second. It went, unfortunately, our screen went to sleep. I don't know. Oh, it should be on. I think that's what he was saying, Bruce was saying, that something else is connected here. We have to. I'm sorry about that. Not sure what. This is like when I was a teacher, and at least now most kids have their laptop. I remember booking the computer lab for the entire day, and you get there, and the internet's down, and you can't teach your lesson for the whole day. All right, so here we are. Okay, so we wanted to present a little bit about the events that have been happening at opening day. I know the last time we were here, Joni gave you some updates about our orientation over the summer and our new hires. We're going to focus on that to begin with. So you'll see, I'm not going to read all of the names, but you'll see these are all our new staff at Placentino, a new grade 2 teacher, a Spanish teacher, a new special ed teacher, school psychologist. We have a new student services administrator, integrated preschool, and grade 1. So a lot of new faces. I think you'll also find we've had some we've had an increase in our diverse candidates this summer, and I'm really excited. I'm going to share some of the data around how we've been growing in inviting and encouraging people of color and people of different countries to come to Holliston. They seem to be getting the word out that this is a great place to work. So we've had some wonderful candidates join us this summer. The same at Miller. Here's the rundown of the different individuals there. Brenda Barton is our .75 nurse, and she's actually not new to the district because she was an LTS last year for us, but she is new to becoming a permanent employee. Are there any other people on our list there, Joni, that have been here before? Do you recall?
Not to my knowledge.
So we have had a lot of changes, and I know people might ask why. We had an increase in resignations and some of it's retirement, some of it's resignations. COVID has led to an increase in that, and some people have left because they wanted to be closer to home, and they've had other opportunities. The last 2 years has been much more turnover, not just in Holliston, but everywhere. So this is a trend that we're seeing related to COVID, but I look at it as an opportunity to bring some unique people into the district and hopefully welcome some changes that will help us grow in a more opportune way. Also, I do want to point out, we are actually more well-staffed than some of the surrounding districts. I'm hearing a lot more panic from some of the other superintendents. We have been fortunate that we have been able to fill not all, but most of our key appointments. So we are in pretty good shape, not perfect. We still have a few openings. And this is the new staff that are meeting us at Rams. 6th grade was hardest hit this year with some changes and resignations, but I think I was in all 3 classrooms today of our new 6th grade teachers, and it was exciting to see them meet their students and get to know them and see some of their lessons. We have a new French teacher who came to us from Canada, so I met her a few times this summer, and I think I was in her class this morning as well. So I think if you get to visit the schools, you'll see some wonderful new faces in the district and some great opportunities for our students as well. High school had a little less changes, but actually John Placide is one of our interesting new hires. I've met with him a number of times. We met by Zoom a lot. John joined us from out of state. I forget where he was, Louisiana? No. Somewhere south, but anyhow, he and I met a lot over the summer because he was actually relocating to the area, and he shared with us that he was born in Haiti, and he taught in Dominican Republic for a number of years. Haiti and Dominican Republic are on the same island, and he's very excited to be here and be able to teach Spanish and French. That is always hard for us to find someone that could fill both set of shoes, so we're excited for that as well. And actually our 2 new science tech teachers at the high school, were both grads? No, one of them was a grad here, right? I believe.
Yes. And Ella was here before as a...
Both worked for us.
para?
Ella worked as a para and
Right.
moved up. And
So
actually,
para.
Caroline, I thought, also worked as an LTS for us last year, but I could be mistaken. But anyhow, we have a lot of veteran teachers, and we have a lot of teachers right out of college that are really excited to join us. So we have a nice balance of new people coming to the area. These are some district-wide positions that, and I mentioned earlier that you get to meet our new pre-K to 12 curriculum coordinators. We have a new BCBA district-wide, Linda. I saw her working with some of our youngsters at Placentino the other day, but at the coordinator level, Joe Hicks is joining us for our social studies and literacy, the humanities position. Ida Pappas, I mentioned earlier, for the Unified Arts. And this person, the other person, is not new, which is why he's not on the screen. But we also have James Lavassa, who normally was a teacher at the high school, and he's now our pre-K to 12, not science and STEM, thank you. It should be STEAM now, but STEM. So this is not everyone, but these are many of our new teachers that Joni met with last week. They're excited to be here, and we want to do everything we can to help them feel welcome and supported here so that we can retain them for a very long time.
Great group. They melded right away. They're a lot of fun.
Yeah, they really were. They were very.
Some of them are like kids.
Yeah, they were very fun when I met them at the orientation. I felt it was a group that was very open to sharing and being a little vulnerable with one another, and that's always a good sign that they're just ready to get to know one another. Yeah,
I
lots of
think
energy.
kids really connect well with this kind of energy.
Yeah, so we're excited to have them.
Yeah, it was exciting.
And then we did have some new changes at central office as well. Michelle is joining us as the interim student services director position. She's filling in as a secretary for the interim student services director. Peggy Lyons replaced Lisa DeLuzio's position because Lisa DeLuzio had transferred over, so she's our new HR admin assistant. And the third position we talked about, I don't know, months back, that we had some shifts with some grant funds and some of our transportation shifts. We shifted some duties to a different area, and we had not filled one position for a number of years. So we created this new position for Daniele, who I literally just hired yesterday. But this position is going to be someone that's going to be our front desk, front and center, so that we talked about central registration. It's part of our strategic plan, so we're already well into our strategic initiatives. She's going to be creating resources for students to have them when parents come in within the year, not during kindergarten registration. She's going to be the first person to greet them, register all their children in one place, help them translate resources. If they need a translator, she'll have that for them as well. And I'm excited because Jariel, and he sat in on the second interview with me. She's fluent in also Portuguese and Spanish as well as English. So it's just, she's a great opportunity for us, and she's really excited to join us. So I think she'll start there about October 1st and get acclimated here as well. And these are some of our other staff members. Not all of them are here yet, but in the works. We have Rosie has started 1 day a week at Placentino. She's Anne Marie Cohen's dog. Anne Marie is one of our adjustment counselors there, and she approached Keith and I don't know, last spring. She's done a lot of work, and Rosie just joined her family not too long ago. She's in the training. She's got the preliminary training, and she's a love. So if you get a chance to meet Rosie, I think she's there on Fridays right now. And then Coda is at Miller. Coda is earlier in the training process, so you may see her a little bit at Miller, but it may be a little while before she's settled there fully. She is our SSA at Miller's dog, Bobby French. And then Newton, I have not met yet, but Newton is hopefully joining us at Rams. He is, I'm blanking, I'll get you the name afterwards. One of our counselors has him, but I just got that picture right before the meeting. So she's going to be working with me to see if we can bring Newton into the district. And then Nugget, that's this morning when I was in the office. Nugget came walking over, and I asked Nugget to sit, and he is just a love. He is Erica and Doug Helle's little wonder, and I think he's 12 years old, and the sweetest little thing. So while it seems funny to have dogs walking around a school, it's awesome. And I've been encouraging this, and Keith, I know, was a little uncomfortable at first, not because he doesn't like dogs, but just the idea of having dogs in your facilities. But I just think with our strategic initiative on safe and supportive schools and our SEL work, I just think they're going to be welcome additions to our families here. So hopefully you'll get to see them at some point.
I would love to join kindergarten and go through all the way to class 12 just for those dogs.
They are loves.
I've never been so happy to click a tick box on a registration form. Can your child participate in the dog? Yes, they can.
Yeah, we're already hearing stories of just this early in the year. There were some, anxious situations that happened, and we heard a nice story today about a high school situation where Nugget just happened to be in the right place and time, and the student calmed down immediately. So, they're not for everybody, but for a lot of us, that goes a long way.
Absolutely.
We're going to work on you, Keith. You're going to be a dog person yet.
He just sees liability.
It's really that, it's more just the worry. August 29th, some of you were able to join us for our opening day event, so there's some pictures from there. We had our high school students playing in the courtyard, and then we had high school students playing instruments and singing an opening number for us, so that was a lot of fun. Picture on the bottom left is just our staff mingling for breakfast before we began, and then on the bottom right, I think, who was here? Stacy and Catherine were able to meet, well, not meet, but see Michaela Campbell. She is a shining star, a Holliston grad from 2018, and she is the first person to be hired by Project 351, which is a program that was started in 2011, I think, 2010 or 11, I'm not 100% sure. But we, every year, have an 8th grade ambassador that goes through Project 351, and she was, in 2014, our 8th grade ambassador. I've got to meet her this summer and invited her to come speak, and she's a joy, and she's the reason why we are doing such great things in Holliston. She's an example of that. And she's going to hopefully get us to align with some of the works that the Celtics are doing on the playbook. They have another whole initiative, so I won't share about that right now. If we get into that program, I'll share more, but I'm hoping we'll have some great opportunities with Michaela, since she's still a Holliston resident, and very happy to get back to the schools.
And we want to thank the PTO for the breakfast.
Yes, they were wonderful.
That was very nice.
So I know 351 is the number of cities and towns in Massachusetts, but what does that group do? I haven't heard of that.
So I wish I had the little handout here that I had sent out earlier, but so Project 351 is about community service and giving back, but also they take these 8th grade students and they start them with coming up with the community service project immediately, but they stay with them all through high school. So they have to go back annually, and they have different offerings each year, but it's really about that giving back and promoting and supporting others. But a big part of what they do is they learn how to be incredible public speakers. So last year, Joni and I attended 2 different conferences, and that's how I actually met Caroline, I can't remember her last name, Michaela's boss, and I connected with Caroline. That's how I connected with Michaela. But these students, you would be amazed. By 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, they are phenomenal. So
They're better than most
Oh, yeah,
adults.
Kayla was
Better
amazing.
than most
And
adults.
actually, they spoke at MASC last year.
Yes.
And again,
yes,
like,
yes,
amazingly
That group, yes.
strong, like articulate, really impressive, but they also
20
focus on,
minutes, and she was like, and you couldn't blink your eye, she was that good.
yeah, so riveting, but they also focus on gratitude. And they start their day and their projects and everything with gratitude. It was really,
It was really, really, really.
Well, I think we're going to have some opportunities that, whether it's Michaela and her team, but other opportunities that we can bring people into the district, because what I'd like to see is some of these students that are peers to our students, or even a little bit older, they can have them come along. Some of the messages that we give them are much better heard when they hear it from their younger peers. So I think this is a time when we have a pivotal point of doing some of the SEL work and the equity work coming from our students. We'll have a much wider range than we would.
And Susan, Sean Bilodeau spoke that morning and was so vulnerable and so stressed about, I'm not a good speaker. I have to tell you, it was one of the best, not presentation, it was the best entertaining, special moment to watch him introduce the kids and talk about, what was important to the district and the Stone. So Sean really, he was strong and he was great.
Yeah, Sean and I have a special bond now. We started meeting last May. I had asked them if they would consider doing some kind of special musical event for us at the opening, and he jumped right on board.
Yeah.
And he worked over the summer with the students, and we met over the summer. Actually, I saw Sean today. Yeah, we've had some really nice conversations, and he's a great person, and I think the kids really look up to Sean. So I'm grateful for him, and I'm hopeful that we'll be doing some more events like this in the future.
When they were doing the superhero theme, though, I wanted the administration to sing. I thought that's what was coming next.
You don't want me to
They
sing.
made all the whole administrative staff stood at the front, and they got
would've got out
gemstones.
and
It was
walked
it was
away.
awesome. It was like a Marvel comic type of theme, and I thought they were all going to sing next.
Yeah,
It didn't happen. but
I'll
they
hide
were
in
all
the background if that
They
happens.
looked like they were going to sing.
Joe, and he's going to talk about PD for
Yes.
August 3rd.
So to go to Dr. Kuska's, what she was saying a little bit earlier, we really have started rolling out the strategic plan. So all the presentations on the 30th were tied directly to the arches. So Dan McLeod talked about Arch 1 and 4 throughout his presentations. He had presentations in the morning and in the afternoon. And we had this theme going just about, like his theme was like trekking, right? We're talking about going on a journey. So he talked about a lot about privacy, cybersecurity, and different records, and also training on Power School for a lot of the different schools. In the afternoon, he really geared it specifically to each school and what their needs were.
I'm trying to pause there for a second just to add, it was really hot and humid.
Oh, big time.
And we had everybody at the high school, because we were doing different things that we were having the presenters go to the staff. In hindsight, we have some ideas to maybe
Yes.
think about for the future. However, some of the topics we did want to do early in the year so that everybody would hit those at once. But I already had sent out something to staff. I'm hoping, rather than do it the Tuesday before school starts, we're probably going to ask you to shift it on the calendar to the Friday, so that there'll be the Friday that the staff will be coming. Because some of it was that they're so worried about getting ready for students and they felt they couldn't focus on it as much. But we got some really good feedback too. But there's
Yes.
we want to take the feedback that was not as positive and think about how can we respond to that as well.
Absolutely. Another presentation we had, if you can go to the next slide, was really important because they all got a common message. And it was Dr. Kuska, Jess Beatty, Chief Cassidy, and how many different police officers were
Chief
there?
Stone was there for part of the day, and then
Right.
we had Brian DiGiorgio, Officer DiGiorgio was there, and we had two other officers, and I met them that day for the first time, so I can't recall their names, but there were two other police officers there. Because even though we have two SROs, they may not always be available, so part of Chief Stone's goals is also to ensure that most, if not all, of his officers that are on that day shift will be comfortable and familiar going into the schools as well. And we're going to try to welcome some of them so that if we did have a safety incident, they would be more familiar with our buildings as well, or just if we needed them to be there for students. So.
And a lot of our feedback was very powerful about this. People thought this was extremely important. They felt like this is the only time it's happened. And they all were on the same page, hearing the same message, same procedures, what the police and the fire expectations were. It was very clear that the district and all of the town leaders are on the same page. So it was very powerful for people to hear that. Jeriel and Jess Beatty talked about Arch 2. Jess was involved with Dr. Kuska in the morning, and Jeriel and Jess did a presentation in the afternoon. Jeriel did it by himself. It's really talking about trauma, and then in the afternoon it was very specific to each school, what they're doing about like PBIS or CARE or RISE, not CARE, RISE, and talking about their programs. So again, all staff got to hear that, paras, everybody. So it was really nice. They could kick that off before school actually started. Arch 3 had the pleasure of introducing the 3 new pre-K through 12 curriculum coordinators. I very briefly introduced them, and those 3 took charge. And they got to introduce themselves very personally and then explain all the strategic initiatives in Arch 3, all about curriculum and instruction. So they definitely started off on the right foot. And then finally, we brought in Gina Flanagan, who is, what's her technical title?
Deputy Director for Curriculum Instruction. I'm reading it, that's why.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, didn't even see that. She came in and trained all staff, all teachers, in the afternoon on how to write strong SMART goals and how to make sure they're tied to the school's improvement plans, which are tied directly to our strategic plan.
Yeah, so she had met with us at the admin retreat in the summer, so we did some sessions with our entire admin team. She's coming back in, I want to say October again, to do another session. So we're really trying to align all this work, tie it all to the strategic plan, and setting our goals so that they will align directly. You'll see my goals. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do under Arch 1, 2, 3, and 4, and similarly, we'll be expecting from these people as well. And at the building level, principals will align theirs to their school and district plans, and then the teachers will be doing the same. I mean, it's not mandatory, but that is really what we're trying to encourage because we're in this work together.
And that is one of the initiatives, to actually improve our evaluation system and that we're all calibrated. So already starting that.
So this is just our visual that you've seen. If you want the posters, we still have some left at central office. It's 11 by 17, I think. But this is just our dashboard showing the main parts of our strategic plan that Joni was connecting that work to. Why don't you talk about opening day too, because Joni was riding a bus.
I was, so I think you need to talk about that because I just saw Holliston by bus, and so I don't know what was going on. So lots of roads.
Well, as you know, like other years, it's all hands on deck for opening days. So we did disperse ourselves. Keith and I were at the high school. We were worried a little bit about the changes with the traffic flow at the high school. So we were at the high school, but then I was able to get to Placentino. Joni rode a bus you were at middle school, but also rode a Placentino bus? Was
Yes.
it? Yes. And then
Multiple days.
Jeriel. So we were all in different places, but these are just a couple of highlights. You'll see on the bottom left is our chief and some of our staff at Placentino welcoming our younger students in on the first day. And then up above on the top left, I just happened to be there, I think it was day 2. They've rolled out their new PBIS, which you'll hear more about throughout the year. But our new PBIS initiative is going to be pre-K to 8, but we're starting at high school as well, Joni, this year, right?
Correct.
But pre-K to 8 have established some of their phrases. So the new phrase from Miller is rise, resilience, integrity, self-awareness, and empathy. And I loved that they rolled out that theme for the beginning of the year. They had all the staff there and the whole grade level there. They did 3 different presentations. So I thought that was a great year to kick off the year. Great way to kick off the year. Top right is just me pointing some of our young friends into the auditorium and cafeterium. And bottom right, you've already seen a picture of Rosie, but Mr. Renee and I just happened to be there on Rosie's first day, which was not August 31st. It was a Friday, but we got to meet her that day, and she's a joy. So I'm sure you'll be, if you cannot find me one day, I might be in the office with Rosie.
Oh my God, it's so cute.
And then our students at the middle school and high school, some are pictured here. I love the picture on the top left of some of our, is it 7th grade? I think it might have been 7th grade, but I'm not. I think it's 7th grade. But they looked so excited to be there. And to be honest with you, that's been the most fun this year. For the first time, as I mentioned on opening day with staff, that's the first time I've been able to have the entire staff in one place together. This is the first time where if people are choosing not to wear masks, we're able to not wear masks. And to have everybody not have to worry about the restrictions right now. Let's hope it stays that way. But there's a definite, much lighter, happier feeling. The enthusiasm, the excitement from staff and students is just definitely prevalent throughout all 4 buildings. On the bottom right was opening day, as I mentioned, with Keith and I at the high school. And I thought it was wonderful. You'll see Mr. Bilodeau is in the background on the left with the drums, but Mr. Calais is there with the students, and this is how they greeted all the students off of the bus. So I just thought that was wonderful. And if you had seen the picture in the hallway, there were actually 2 of our therapy dogs, not our own therapy dogs, but do you remember?
Was it Spencer?
Yeah. Spencer and Penny.
Spencer, and yes, thank you.
Oh, yeah.
So they were there to greet our students as well. And that is it.
This is
I was glad they were able to get back to that tradition.
awesome. I love that. I mean, I can feel
The energy is there.
right from the pictures. That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's been a great
Great job,
opening
team.
thus far.
Great. Thank you. All right, policy.
Just open this up. So I'm only actually going to just read the second reading of JICK. GBEA and IGD were not quite ready for prime time yet. I had meant to have a policy meeting before this, but I had COVID, so I wasn't able to do that. So I'm just going to read that one. The only one that was really ready to go was JICK, so I'll just hold those other 2 until our next meeting. So I do have to read it in its entirety, so forgive me, but it's our second reading, so I have to read the whole thing. All right. JICK, harassment of students. Harassment of students by other students, employees, vendors, volunteers, and other third parties will not be tolerated in the Holliston Public Schools. The alleged harassment must involve conduct that occurred within the school's own program or activity, such as whether the harassment occurred at a location or under circumstances where the school owned or substantially controlled the premises, exercised oversight, supervision, or discipline over the location or participants, or funded, sponsored, promoted, or endorsed the event where the alleged harassment occurred against a person. This policy is in effect while students are on school grounds, school district property, or property within the jurisdiction of HPS, school buses, or attending or engaging in school-sponsored activities. Harassment prohibited by HPS includes, but is not limited to, harassment on the basis of race, color, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, religion, disability, age, genetic information, active military/veteran status, marital status, familial status, pregnancy or pregnancy-related condition, homelessness, ancestry, ethnic background, national origin, or any other category projected by the state or federal law. Students whose behavior is found to be in violation of this policy will be subject to disciplinary action up to and including suspension or expulsion pursuant to disciplinary codes. Employees who have been found to violate this policy will be subject to discipline up to and including termination of employment, subject to contractual disciplinary obligations. Employee-to-student harassment means conduct of a written, verbal, or physical nature that is designed to embarrass, distress, agitate, disturb, or trouble students when submission to conduct is made either explicitly or implicitly a term of or condition of a student's education or of a student's participation in school programs or activities, or submission to or rejection of such conduct by a student is used as the basis for decisions affecting the student. Student-to-student harassment means conduct of a written, verbal, or physical nature that is designed to embarrass, distress, agitate, disturb, or trouble students when such conduct has the purpose of or effect of unreasonably interfering with the student's performance or creating an intimidating or hostile learning environment. Harassment, as described above, may include, but is not limited to, written, verbal, or physical, including texting, blogging, or other technological methods, harassment or abuse, repeated remarks of a demeaning nature, implied or explicit threats concerning one's grades, achievements, or other school matter, demeaning jokes, stories, or activities directed at the student. By law, what constitutes harassment is determined from the perspective of a reasonable person with the characteristic on which the harassment is based. Individuals should consider how their words and actions might reasonably be viewed by others. HPS will promptly and reasonably investigate allegations of harassment through designation of Title IX coordinator or building-based employees who may include principals or their designees. The superintendent will recommend, in consultation with the principals, opportunities to the designated recipients for appropriate training. Where it is determined that discrimination or harassment has occurred, HPS will act promptly to eliminate the conduct and will impose developmentally appropriate disciplinary, restorative, and/or corrective action. HPS will respond promptly and reasonably, repeated, sorry. No, it's not, I'm sorry. Investigate allegations of sexual harassment through designation of the Title IX coordinator or building-based employees to any reports or complaints of discrimination, including harassment and retaliation, or other violations of civil rights pursuant to our detailed response protocol. Where it is determined that discrimination or harassment has occurred, the district will act promptly to eliminate the conduct and will impose developmentally appropriate disciplinary, restorative, and/or corrective action. And this is second reading, September 15th, 2022. Does anybody have any comments, questions? Or,
No?
okay. Then I'd entertain a motion to
Waive the third
waive the
reading.
third reading and adopt the policy as written.
Moved by Stacy.
Second.
All in favor?
Okay. And that's it for me.
Thank you. Central office updates?
Yes, let's see. Oh, I did share, you probably didn't see it because before the meeting, I had shared out just for you to get a preview of, we just received the DESE targeted district curriculum review, which is, I think, 64 pages long or something.
Yes.
So they had been here last spring doing focus groups and meeting with administrators, meeting with staff, and I forget what other parts they did. Joni oversaw a lot of that work. But they finally have put together their recommendations for us. So we have not had time, so we just received that final copy this week. And what I'd like to do is try to summarize it and put together some of that for our October meeting. It's a lot to delve into, but my quick look at it is that a lot of it really aligns with what we've already tried to put into our strategic plan and with our curriculum reorganization for that curriculum realignment piece. So I think we're going to find out that the suggestions that they're making are where we've already kind of identified as a district, but I'll have that summarized for you the next meeting, but I wanted you at least to have it. If you want to read it on the weekend, feel free, but we'll digest it.
Is that at all levels? Is that K through 12?
Yes, yes. But you're going to see different things. Even though it is at all levels, they picked and choose where they went. We didn't, the DESE and the partnership they have with, I forget the group that they work with, but they control the process.
Right.
So, yes, but it's not the same as the way we might do it because they have their own focus as to how, but I think they have enough of they went through a lot of different areas, so I think they've given us a lot of valid information to think about. And then I mentioned the therapy dogs already in our presentation, so I just wanted to mention, I did say that we're still short some positions. So one of the positions that we still are lacking, I think we're still lacking about 8 or 9. It changes by the day, but we've got a handful or more of paraprofessional positions open, which is why Joni was riding the bus a few days, and we've been asking our wonderful staff to jump in, and even if they might not be monitors normally, some of them are also doing some monitor work for us. So again, all hands on deck, not only we've had, actually, even Kenny from the high school went down to the kindergarten to help out. So we are hoping that we can still spread that word, that we still need some paraprofessional positions. We have a phenomenal group of people here. We've had, I don't even know at this point because it's been updating every day, but we've had probably a good 20 new hires over the summer, or would it be less than that?
Oh, more than that.
More than 20?
Oh, yes.
Yes. So our paraprofessional staff has also changed
Signed
drastically.
3 today, so.
Yeah. So maybe the next time we meet, once we fill some of that, we maybe can get a picture of that group together. It's hard because they're in 4 buildings. They don't have the monthly mentoring meetings, which is why Joni's able to get that group together. But we're grateful for all the new staff that we have welcomed this year. And I think that was all for me.
But you're going to talk about the dog trainer job, so.
Dog trainer? That's yours, isn't it?
No. Are you going, Joni, or?
I do not
Dora's
have
locked.
anything to report.
Amanda's stuck.
So while we are at it, I just want to have one thing that I want to ask about the dogs. I love them, all of them. I can take them home. But do we have any protocols in place about allergies or safety? Or
I'm glad you asked that, yes.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yes, they are primarily confined to one area. Usually it's the person that is the owner of the dog that has them. There's an opt-out feature as well, so parents as the dogs are coming in, the parents are notified, just like we do with social media and pictures and things, that they can opt out if they have any concerns for safety or if there are allergens as well. I believe that 2 of our dogs are, what's the word? Hypoallergenic, thank you. But either way, sometimes kids still have allergies to them.
Don't we have a policy?
We do.
I was going to say, I remember putting a policy together on
A
it.
very long one.
Yes, because we have had therapy dogs in the buildings for I don't know how many years. This is just more, this is going to be a more regular basis, so that's why it's
This is wonderful,
Yeah.
yeah. So which areas are they in typically?
At the high school, in the counselor's office, at Placentino, it's also in adjustment counselor's office. At Miller, it is in our SSA's office. And at middle school, I'm not sure yet, because this is a new one that I just found out about today. I believe he'll be with one of our counselors, but I don't have all the details yet, so. I think that those roles do lend themselves a little bit more because it's not really going to lend itself as much. If you're a classroom teacher, it's a little harder to have a therapy dog with you all day. And also it's really about trying to support some of the tier 2 and 3 needs of some of our students who might have some SEL supports that they need, and they can go to some of these areas to get that support as well.
Wonderful.
Thank you for asking.
Hi, Amanda.
Keith.
Welcome.
Oh, you want me to put this up, right?
No, I don't know. We'll see if they want to. Contained in your packets is the budget update. As many of you know, the September 1 is not exactly the most enthralling, just because it's mostly our existing budget. Just a couple of quick things to notice. On the second page, you'll see there's a substantial amount of favorability. That's with vacant teacher positions, leaves that we know about, and hiring rate. We did a nice job with hiring rate this year. On page 3, you look about 3/4 of the way down, that there's a big negative with regards to our bus contract, which I mentioned a number of times here as well. So bus contract came in high, and that was based around the result of the bus contract coming in high is we have a full staff, our contractor has a full staff of bus drivers, so we're not having the difficulties that some other districts are having. So, if you want the service, you're going to have to pay for it. So that came in higher. We still haven't, as I'll always say this time of year, we haven't had a day of winter yet. The way things are going, we may not have any days of winter, but we haven't had a day of winter yet. We're still looking at a very unfavorable position with regards to our fuel oil. We did not lock in. We're about 50 cents better than we were at the point that we went out to bid, so there's 50,000 of less bad news. But we were about $1.50 over where we had projected. 110,000 gallons, so we were looking at a $170,000 negative hit on that. So right now we're 110 maybe-ish positive negative hit still. So I'm writing that out until I see when the worm turns on oil prices. I do know they mentioned that they're looking at the current belief is that they're actually looking for a floor on oil prices because they want to start rebuilding the reserves. So if I'm going into things you guys don't care about, I'm sorry. So if that happens, then at that point oil prices will basically stop falling because, again, they're not going to be using, right now they're currently using reserves, much less actually putting more back into reserves. So if that happens, we'll be done and lock in and call it a day. So I do watch that daily. The overall picture is right now we're about 75,000 to the good. So I don't know if there's any early questions or questions on the early projection.
Can you just say that whatever that phrase was, 75,000 what?
To the good. We're
To the good.
$75,000 favorable compared to our budget. But again, there's no bad news in oil there. So
Projection, right, 75,645, is that the number?
Yes.
yes. So that's the first thing I have for my thing. The second thing is we met, the budget subcommittee met to discuss fall capital. That's the second thing in your packet. We put forward a number of items, all technology items, Chromebooks for 5 and 8, which is our traditional thing. Annually, the Chromebook flips for kindergarten are 5 years old, so there's an amount in there that we need to replace those. There's a high school computer lab that we recommended putting forward or requested putting forward to the budget subcommittee. That amount is $63,000. We just have a lab that truthfully can't handle some of the applications that we're running, so we're either doubling up in lab space or letting things run very slowly. There was a recommendation for an auditorium lighting project. The prices for the project, the next two items on that list relate to that project. The prices came in way higher than we had expected. We also have the issue of that we're not sure about the future of this building and how much support we're going to have in different areas of it. To put in $250,000 into something like that at this stage, we weren't prepared to do it. The current lighting is operational. The current dimmer panel is operational. So again, it's just that it's tougher to get incandescent bulbs now. I mean, the inventories are virtually gone. So as opposed to having issues going down the road, we wanted to kick this down the road to at least next spring. So because it would be a summer project anyway, we can't do this type of replacement of equipment during the school year, really, as plays are occurring, as the space is being used for classes. So we want to kick this can to the spring and then see if either prices come down for the project. Again, you're talking about supply chain and some issues. You're talking about if we want to get on the list, we may have to pay higher rate for certain contractors. So, and there's actually a limited number of contractors that do this work in Massachusetts. So there's a lot of factors right now that our recommendation was actually not to bring this forward to the Budget Subcommittee, and the Budget Subcommittee agreed with that as well. So, the recommendation that the administration made was to go forward with a request for $232,425. The Budget Subcommittee agreed with that, to bring that forward to you all. Any questions?
The only other thing I wanted to point out is that in spring of 2022, we had estimated that our capital requests would come in at around $336,500. And now, in fact, we've come in lower, over $100,000 lower, at $232,425.
Yes.
Right? And the auditorium lighting issue isn't going to go away, but it is operational, and it is definitely on our list of high-need items for the spring. So
Correct.
we should expect it'll come back, and we're also hoping for more competitive bids to reduce the price, because
Correct.
we're conscious of that. In addition, for the spring, what are some of the other big, long-term capital projects that we're thinking?
Well, we're thinking about a wrecking ball, and no. The biggest one is going to be the track at Committee Field. I'm trying to get the guy who won the contract last time we resurfaced, to give his opinion on where we're at, whether we're resurfaced, which would be on the order of, I shouldn't say give you a number because supply chain don't know, but the last time we did it was just under $100,000. The projection, if we had to replace it from another source, was more, if we have to replace it, is $250,000. So it's a rather wide difference, resurfacing it again or replacing it. So again, we just need to get a real honest look at the condition of the track and whether we can get away with resurfacing it again. If we can, great. I'd rather spend $97,412.18 rather than $250,000. So we'll find that out as we go down the road. We'll know that obviously by the spring. So, but that's really the biggest thing we have as an immediate need. The one thing that's going to come out for our next school committee meeting, I'm going to be making a request to close out some of our capital projects. There's a capital project for some technology that has, I have the report here, for some networking infrastructure that has an outstanding balance of just under 14,000. Project's done, 14,000 goes back to the town. The original exterior security camera project has $844 left, so that we can return that. The turf project, there's $38,000 remaining balance. I'm going to make a recommendation to return 25 of it. I'm still negotiating with the firm that did the install to cover some more of the additional costs we ended up having to bear. But if I don't get those, I'm going to need most of that money. So, but we can return 25,000. And then there's two other projects. I got to speak to some other people about our old boiler project. We have 27,000 left in that. Whether we want to leave that there, I discussed with the Budget Subcommittee in our next meeting, but whether we want to leave that there for a subsequent project or return that to the town. And then the insulation for the field house, we had that project as a Green Committee project, as a Green Communities project. We couldn't get a vendor to do any of the work because it was just before COVID started and then COVID hit. So it's whether we want to keep that money with the idea that we either may request more or maybe some year with some favorability at the end of a year, we would try to do that in the summer, or do we want to return that? So there's some questions we'll have to ask and answer. We'll start with the Budget Subcommittee and go through that. So, but expect to see that on the agenda for the next meeting, at least the first 4 items or whatever I brought up to you. So, so that's any questions on existing capital or old capital?
I think it might be helpful to remind people there were a couple of projects too that we received capital funds for. One was the Miller project, $125,000, is that what it is?
The Miller Roof project, yes. I've had to make some corrections to the bid with OSD. I'm hoping it's going to go out tomorrow. That was a project, that was money that we got just before COVID started. COVID hit. Needless to say, we weren't doing projects in 2020. We weren't sure we were going to be able to open school. I mean, I wasn't letting anybody in the buildings then. Then last summer was just a blur with trying to get ready for full in session, or as much full in session as we could be last year. And then this summer, it just wasn't going to work out timing-wise. So it's a project we can do now, we need to do now, so that's going to be hopefully on the street Friday, probably no later than Monday. And then the other project is the large one that's on our list is the rooftop unit project, which again was $500,000 of seed money. Everything's still running. My recommendation is to continue leaving that money there. The Finance Committee knows about it. We discussed with the Finance Committee at the last budget subcommittee meeting, in fact, and they acknowledged that this was money to be held in reserve for a project so that we weren't calling an emergency town meeting a week from now type of thing, so.
Right, so the Miller project is moving forward. It's just been delayed because of COVID, but that money is needed and will be expended. We do believe in the near or unforeseen future that
Well,
we are going to need.
it's going to be obligated, right.
Yeah, we're going to need the $500,000, and that was why we have held it, because we didn't want to spend it and then have another building blow up on us, because we're trying to be proactive, but we might need it reactively as well.
It's, again, we were very clear with the Finance Committee and the community of what the purpose of that $500,000 was for. It's not because something was currently broken, but we didn't want to lose access to either an educational space or truthfully a space that the town uses in town hall, for town meeting. It's
Because it's how old? I mean, it's gone beyond its life.
Oh, it's gone beyond its useful life, and again, the maintenance department and our outside contractor have done a great job of, spit and bale wiring at times and getting parts and, at times finding used parts. That being said, we're at that point where things may fail that we can't, replace or fix. A perfect example is we had an air conditioning unit go down at Miller. We have budget money for doing repairs. It would fit within that number. So, we just, you'll see that come through the warrant process of an $8,000 new air conditioning unit for one of the areas at Miller. That's a 12-month space. So, again, those types of projects we do because we have budgeted money for those things. I don't have $500,000 sitting in the budget to be able to do those projects, so we need money set aside for those things, so.
Does it, I know I'm jumping slightly, but we have our budget subcommittee update, and this is exactly what we talked about at the budget subcommittee, but could we put up the capital requests and I had a couple more things I just wanted to go over. Can we, it was in the packet, if we can put it up on the.
I have it up on my screen exactly right now, so we can.
Keith, while you're doing that, can I just ask a question about the auditorium, the
Yes.
lighting? Am I remembering correctly that should the SOI, magically come to fruition and the improvements that are made there, like the auditorium would be staying, correct?
But we don't know. They could recommend a renovation to the entire building, but oftentimes they will have you keep a large structure like that, even in a newer building. But it's very, very likely that if we're going to do a complete upgrade to we would have to upgrade all of that because the technology would be obsolete. It's very old at this point. So.
The rationale that MSBA offered us at that time when they came and did the walkthrough was that for a district of this size, a high school of this size, we would end up with a 300 to 350 person auditorium. That's what they build. If you ever been in Medfield's auditorium, similar size high school, that's what their auditorium holds. So they don't build an auditorium to hold every student. That's just not what happens. So they even said, you may, when we do invite you along, you may want to remind the architect that you may not get this space. Right. The challenge, though, is that if they don't do that space, then all the spaces within there, like the 1969 seating. Seating is 1969. We did the renovation. It was literally reupholstered. It was not replace it. That seating, if we had to replace that or decided to replace that, would be 100% on the town of Holliston, there'd be no reimbursement for that. If we did the lighting for that, it'd be 100% on the town of Holliston, no reimbursement for that. If they don't do the space, they don't do the space. It's not, they can do pieces of it. They don't. They'll build something to connect to it, but that's it. So, that'll be a decision that, the community will be making when the feasibility study's done and plans are put together, that there'll be, there'll be a school building committee that reports to the select board. That's the way that it's been set up before, that will make these types of decisions on what piece, if the decision's made to build new, whether to build everything new or whether to keep some of the old. Like, again, the field house is not part of any sort of building project. They don't build field houses. They will build you a large gym, but they won't build you a three full-size basketball court gym, field house. So that's the piece of, again, the betwixt and between and where it's going to go project-wise. So
could also be in a totally different location, like they might recommend that we put it somewhere else.
There's a possibility, because whether it be that especially when you consider things like wastewater here, that there is no acceptable space for us to have a leaching field.
Correct.
We have a waiver for the leaching field here, that came through in 2000 or 2001 from the DEP. I've been personally told by the DEP, don't touch the system, because you touch the system, we're never going to waive this again. And you will be required to put a wastewater treatment facility on site, or have access to one from this site. So those are the types of things that, when you bundle all these things together, there's a lot of pieces to consider, and it's not going to be a simple, oh, there's an open field, let's throw a school over there. Or, here's your existing school, let's just fix a couple things up. Even if they did a renovation, if their recommendation was saying, your building is sound, et cetera, like it was back in 2001, paint and paper, and we'll put all new equipment inside, we're going to still do a wastewater treatment facility. There's not a question about that, so. And we know what that requires, a building and a lot of other things get added to that, which would be compromise a lot of space on this campus as well. So it's going to be an interesting decision tree. There's no question about it.
Just getting back to our fall 22 capital requests, some of these items we saw, I think, before when Dan put on his presentation, I think in the spring. So it's not the first go-round, but this is based on your most updated, I guess, of the bids and the numbers. And again, we pulled the auditorium lighting and dimmer panel out for all the reasons Keith spoke of, which is it came in higher than we thought. We're hoping to get a more competitive bid in the spring. It's still operational. There's just more pieces to this, right? So we are coming in, again, a little more than $100,000 under what the estimate was, but we do want to ask, and budget did vote to put forth this number of $232,425. Does anyone have any questions on the specific pieces to it? Because it really amounts to 3 different requests: the grade 5 and 8 Chromebooks, the grade K Chromebook flips, the Holliston High School computer lab. So it's my understanding that the warrant closes on Monday, September 19th. And that FinCom is scheduled to meet to review this. So at this time, I'd like to make a motion that the full committee approve just those 3 items for the total amount of a fall 22 capital request of $232,425.
Second.
But I don't think that we can vote on it, because it's not on our agenda to vote for a capital request tonight.
I think it falls on the agenda under both the Assistant Superintendent for Finance and Operation update with what he provided to us 2 days ago within the capital requests, and also under our budget update. This comes out of our budget subcommittee September, 7th meeting, where it was on our agenda, and it was something we voted for.
I understand that, but every year we have to actually put it on our agenda. If you check last year's agenda at this time, it was listed on the agenda. So I don't think that we can vote on it tonight.
I disagree. I think we can take a vote on it. I think that, it falls within our budget update. And again, on our agenda for our budget meeting, it was part of what we had listed, the capital request. Similar to, I guess our capital meeting in 2020 happened in November. That, the same agenda that listed it, we then voted on it. A motion was made and the full committee voted on it.
It didn't say vote capital budget?
It did not say vote. I have it. If you want to, if we're going.
I'm fine. I just don't trust other people out there who would just slap an open meeting law violation.
Yeah.
So I that's my only concern, and I think it's better to be more cautious than not, but I mean, I don't know.
Well, if it invalidates the vote, you can always re-vote it. I think you can certainly go forward, I mean, there's question periods that you could certainly express something that you either think is missing or you would change about this. The Budget Subcommittee has voted for it. I would certainly expect the 3 members of that to vote for it. So from that perspective, I think that whether you vote for it or not, the number that's going to go forward would then be what the Budget Subcommittee voted on it, unless, again, there was people, unless, the other 4 members who are on the Budget Subcommittee voiced some, all 4, I should say, not some, all 4 voiced a displeasure with the number, then I would think that regardless of the vote, this is the number that's going to end up in at least the first pass of the warrant.
I'm not saying I don't support it.
No, I'm not
saying
saying.
I don't want to vote because it's not on the agenda.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Because for transparency, and when we had the same issues every year, we have that on our agenda. So in September of 2021, we had capital request on our agenda. We don't have that on our agenda tonight. So we can't vote on something that we don't put on our agenda specifically to vote on. That's what I'm saying. We've talked about this a number of times on so many different issues. I don't know why this is becoming a surprise somehow. We can vote on it in October when we put it on the agenda.
I do not think we should wait until October 13th. If the committee wants to notice a meeting next week and vote on it then, but the warrant does close on September 19th. This will go out to print. I think open meeting law wants to protect transparency, but also I don't, the communication, the idea that this is going to go to print and the school committee's number isn't there. Certainly we could put another vote on October 13th in addition to this one, but I think we want our number there. We want our capital requests printed so that the community can review this.
Well, the other option, as Keith said, if we don't vote tonight, the number that's going to go is what the Budget Subcommittee approved.
Well, what's going to get put on by Travis / the Select Board is the best information that they have. And the best information that they're going to have is what the Budget Subcommittee voted.
And historically, haven't we changed that number like even up to the last minute?
If necessary, we can. There's no question about it. You can change on town meeting floor. There's no question about it. I'm just saying that from the standpoint of trying to keep the warrant process moving forward, if somebody has if one of the other 4 members, actually all 7, but I obviously met with the Budget Subcommittee, if one of the other 4 members has an issue with some piece of this, I would love to hear that now as opposed to waiting till October 13th.
Do you have any precedents about us voting on capital projects without specifically having it on the agenda?
Again, I think it is on the agenda. I mean, my position is it is on the agenda under the Assistant Superintendents for Finance Operations, and the fact that it was included in our information 2 days ago, and the fact that we were providing a budget update based on our agenda that was published, I don't know, well in advance of the September 7th meeting, where it said capital request. I'm going to lean on Keith's recommendation here, and again, we want to make sure that this is part of what's being printed in advance of. I'm expecting it would be printed by October 3rd.
Again, I just think that we should not be holding up the warrant process
Agreed.
unless there is some, so I would personally, and it's not my meeting, but I think having a discussion about the items is more important at this point than actually having to vote. Because if there's no problems with any of the items, then the vote becomes a formality.
Right. That makes sense.
And that's the piece of it. And being fully transparent, it is a formality. If you all agree to that number and you say, yep, that's everything we think that would be there, we understand the auditorium thing, we support administration's recommendation, we support the Budget Subcommittee's recommendation, even more important than administration's at this point, then, that's more important, at least to me, for me to be able to tell Travis tomorrow that here's the number that the Budget Subcommittee brought forward. The school committee gave the collective head nod. They're going to do a formal vote on October 13th. I don't want to have the negative vibes of the arguments, or not arguments, but the disagreement on this. I would just, again, if we know that this is the number, then it's the number.
Right.
so.
Well, when the agenda was posted on Friday and then posted again on Monday, this information wasn't added until after that was sent out. So in terms of like any budget subcommittee wasn't in our packet until after the 13th, because I looked at it over the weekend and Monday and didn't see it on Tuesday. And then I looked at it today, and then it was there. So I'm just saying, like, we
So
can't.
It's fine, Cynthia,
And just,
I'm
it's a
not-
procedural issue, just like, we have to just, like, wait until October.
Fine, I've already put that in the rearview mirror. I think what I want to hear, and what helps us, and what helps the budget subcommittee, whether there has to be further deliberation on this, and what helps us with regards to communicating with the town, is are there any issues with the number?
I do not have any issues with the
Okay.
number.
Okay.
Okay. Does anyone else have any issues with the number, either whether they feel strongly that we should be adding something or taking something out, or they feel strongly on the high school auditorium lighting and dimmer panel issue? Is there any concern at all?
And that's it, we have our answer. We can forward the budget subcommittee number, and we will
Vote on it.
formalize this at our next meeting.
And we will have another meeting in advance of, I think,
October 13th is
Yep.
our meeting.
Do we need to add another meeting, though?
Oh, you mean school committee?
Or just vote on October?
right, there's a budget subcommittee meeting before.
Yeah.
Oh, right,
Oh,
next
yeah.
week,
Oh,
yes.
Next week.
Yeah. If we know the number's going to be, then, and again, as Dawn said, I mean, we've changed it before because
Right.
prices doubled all of a sudden out of nowhere, we're going to need more. So that's acknowledged and accepted and et cetera. So no, I know to tell Travis now, so.
Yeah, and I seem to remember times when the warrant's been printed without a number, like,
Oh,
kind of placeholder.
Again, anything can happen even on town meeting floor.
Right.
So what has to go forward is what you all want to be in there. Whether it's voted tonight, October, town meeting floor. It's what you all want it to be, so, with the agreement of obviously the town, so. Okay.
But I think going forward, it would be good to just have a placeholder on the agenda that says budget, because we're always going to have budget stuff to talk about.
Well, there is.
But I
The
think,
reports for
so
subcommittee,
here's
but
what I
it's
would
different
say.
when votes.
I just think we need clarification from the town clerk about whether or not to have a vote, because Ben and I had this conversation last night at another meeting. So I
Yeah,
just
that's
want,
fair. Yeah.
just get
need
that
piece. Do we have to
clarification about a
specify budget
vote.
vote or capital vote?
We've
Okay, but this
We've been
will
slim for
apply
this
to
before.
the newsletter. I do think we should have a placeholder for the newsletter, because that is a vote every time.
It should have been on the agenda, it's not.
So going forward, I think we should have every meeting, put that on as a placeholder if you could. And either we have a newsletter or we don't, but at least we won't have to worry about
Not being on the agenda.
it not being on the agenda.
What was that under old business before?
That's
It was under new.
easily fixed.
Yeah, newsletter should be under new business.
It was under new
Subcommittees,
business.
'cause
We
you
had
have-
it every time.
Okay, I was going to say, because aren't you, is a part of the subcommittee too, though, right? Could be in the subcommittee.
And then one other item I put in there is an item for information. I know that there's been some discussion, we'll say, around town with regard to some of the bus timing. And, the challenges have been many. The, unbeknownst to at least certainly us, state road projects that started digging up Washington Street.
September 1st.
Out of the blue, closing the road on a Friday, which created some very interesting situations for the person who's speaking right now, and driving around neighborhoods and maybe scaring some people, because
Swearing.
taking their kids. I was not. I was very clean on that one. I was being nice to parents as they were sitting there waiting for a bus that I wasn't sure could actually get there, but we got through it. But thank God I took a school vehicle, so they weren't thinking, who's this weirdo driving around the neighborhoods looking at my kids? So what I did was I didn't open it up. What I did was I put basically for each of our buses, each of our 3 runs, either the intersections that are bad, where they're coming from, et cetera, just to kind of give you a little bit of a flavor on some of the challenges. Like bus 8 has been our biggest problem. It does if you look down, so for the first run of the day, it does the Queens. And then it drives all the way down Washington Street, turns around, comes all the way back Washington Street, picks up, goes to Cedar Brook, up Johnson Drive, et cetera, and then continues back to the school. And so when roads get closed, roads are limited to 1 lane, it impacts it substantially. and then it does the last route, then goes back to the Queens for its last route of the day. So, you know, these are the types of things that, again, when there's these types of road projects that are occurring, the fact that Winter Street is still dirt, and the fact that Cortlandt Street is dirt.
Not anymore, they just finished it.
They finished it today? Good, thank God. So maybe that's why we ended up with traffic on Highland Street today. Oh, no, it's because they didn't do Washington Street today. Susan texted me this morning, goes, why am I sitting in traffic and I can see my office? So, you know, it's, the ebb and flow of traffic is always a challenge. And like I said, the intersection up here with all the new stop signs, we anticipated being much worse. I kind of wonder if maybe the traffic that's getting stuck on Washington Street has maybe prevented traffic from getting up here. So again, we adapt and adjust the best we can on the fly. You know, Bus 8 was on time today, for example. You know, it's because Washington Street was not under construction. The challenge is that, you know, parents want their children to school, we want their children to school to learn. We can't suddenly, you know, start moving school start times differently. I can't tell Bus 8, go pick up those Miller kids 15 minutes earlier today to make sure you're on time for it. Just, we do the best we can with it. And this at least gives you some information so that if somebody calls you and says, do you know that Bus 3 was this? Well, did you know that Bus 3 does this, and this? Just some information, just pay attention to it, don't pay attention to it. You know, this is just how, unfortunately, what I do when I'm watching a ball game or
So Keith,
on an evening, on a weekend.
The first day of school didn't make sense because Washington Street started.
Yeah.
But I do think next year, because it sounds like the state said that they're working on Washington Street till the end of the year.
That's actually changed,
Oh, it has, okay,
as of news from yesterday.
okay.
So what's the news from yesterday?
That some of the drainage issues on Washington Street have to be rethought. So the sidewalk is going to go forward for a period of time, and that the road work is going to, the scope of the road work is going to be changed, at least for the short term, so.
So when she's saying the end of the year, are you saying it's getting worse than the end of the year?
I'm saying that it's going to be probably much sooner that we'll have less machines on our streets.
Okay.
And go from there. If this was going to be a year-long project, then yes, no, but I'm saying, if it was going to be, then yes, we would have to consider, do we pick up the Miller School children earlier? Do we have to move the start time of the high school, middle school, and Placentino later? I mean, those are the types of things we have to do.
No, what I was gonna ask was, what I wanted you to do originally was have McMahon be here on September 1st to watch this intersection with all of the new traffic. But Washington Street is screwing this up a little bit, as was the traffic, I believe, in Ashland on 126. With that road being one lane, so people are trying to find their ways. So my point is, I would like McMahon to look at this issue from a school perspective and how we're doing things, because I know the change is somewhat painful for people. That being said, it's taken me 5 minutes from Prospect to come up to Hollis, because I timed it. Is it the quickest 5 minutes in the world? No, but it's 5 minutes.
Again, these are challenges that we have when there's bad weather, when there's an accident, when there's a breakdown. It's just unfortunate that this, by being a road construction project that was unbeknownst to us, that we couldn't try to plan around.
Yeah.
And again, it may have helped some areas as which may be, you know, part of the supposition, and it may have hurt other areas. It's all a balance, and that's the thing, is that the building of bus routes and the execution of them is a balance, and we tweak things, I don't say constantly, but often. I mean, we're about to do a major rewrite to accommodate more students on our buses, because I have 3 buses that are completely full at the middle school, high school run. So I'm sitting down with a person from Holmes tomorrow to go over this whole thing at 9:30 in the morning. So we're going to have a big rewrite coming out of this, which happens every year. This is not something new. So,
Yeah, I think,
you know,
I think the bigger difference this year is just that in addition to school opening and having all these projects and not knowing about some of them, the timing of them was not ideal.
You also had a water main break, was it?
Exactly.
On the first day of school, absolutely.
So that
Right,
totally-
right, absolutely.
Murphy's Law, I mean, this is highly unusual to have all of this come at once.
2 more water leaks today, and depending on your neighborhood.
So are we like still trying to hire a bus coordinator, or is that completely off the table?
We do have, what's going to happen is a member of my staff is going to be taking on the busy work that I am doing now. The routing is going to be done by Holmes. That's what's going to happen there.
Holmes?
That's the transportation
company?
company.
The company is
Yes.
going to do the
Which is a
routing?
very common practice, and that's the
Okay.
way it is in most districts.
Is it?
Not most, I'll say many districts, I don't want to say most, 'cause I don't know if it's 51%.
Okay, right.
But in many districts, that's the way that it happens, especially small districts. Because to dedicate a resource to it, it's a cost for something that is not a year-long project.
Right.
So, I mean, the issue is, I mean, from a timing perspective, we're actually doing pretty well, in all honesty, considering everything that's going on here, between the new stop signs, between, some of the
A lot of issues, yeah.
the road issues, and then some very odd things that we had not expected to see with regards to the distribution of children in town. We have a number of families, and I've talked to this about Susan, we have a number of 2 household families now that we really hadn't seen before, of literally 2 families living in the same house, which is really, the volume of it is new here, and I think that's changed some of the change in the demographics of the town. And so, it's adapting, adjusting to that, where we have pockets of students at a higher level than we'd had before in some neighborhoods.
So if Holmes does the routing, will there not be a mechanism by which we can sort of edit and go throughout the year, or will that be
Oh,
your
no, that'll
staff?
still be
Okay.
happening. That's always going to happen. It's just, we're changing our software package to something that's up in the cloud so that we will have access to it and they will have access to it. So, because again, we need to do the fee portion of it and, the distribution of passes and things like that, the administrative things we'll be doing. They'll be working on the routing and stuff, just because, again, and this is their business. So very often when the routing is done, and it does happen, we talk about, we're going to move this to here, move that there. Says, no, don't do number 2, do this instead. And that happens now, so.
Okay, thanks.
So you have that? I think I'm done.
All right, thank you.
Or I think you're done with me. How about that?
Personnel, I feel like we already covered a lot of that today. Anything else in there? So reports from the subcommittee, in the vein of staying in the same conversational link, the school start times, we can't really have a good school start times conversation until the traffic kind of slows down and we can figure out what's happening with the buses, so we have not met yet, but at some point, Keith, maybe we can talk about the timing of the state projects, and that can be part of our school start times conversation, but
Including changing the name?
changing the name of the subcommittee. We can change it to whatever you want.
No, you told me I couldn't have my name, so.
We just can't spend time discussing it and arguing about it. Anyway. So we will be meeting in that soon, but, meeting before the dust settles is not really productive. Communications?
We need to schedule a meeting. I did do a newsletter. We can discuss whether or not we can vote on it. I think it's different than the budget issue because we're not making a decision that affects people that needs to be noticed. The newsletter is us just agreeing to put out information. So I think that we would be safe in voting the newsletter, but it's 9:00, I don't care. It's 9:02. I'm tired, so whatever you guys want to do.
Does the subcommittee, anybody else on the subcommittee have a comment?
I
or
vote
thought?
no, it's not on the agenda.
For newsletter?
Yeah, it's not on the agenda.
Fine. Policy, we already did. Budget, do you have anything else to add?
I have a policy meeting actually next week I wanted to let people know about, which is Thursday, September 22nd at 2:30 in central office.
And budget, we have a meeting on, Steve?
October 6th
Thank you.
at 11:30.
Do
You guys all have that in your calendar too, I just want to make sure.
At Central Office.
Yes. Well, we've been meeting hybrid.
Oh, okay. Great.
I was trying to think of the word. I just want to make sure you guys have it too, because
I have it, but I scheduled something else, and I have to figure it out.
All right. And Superintendent's eval?
You're not gonna do anything yet. It's way too early. Unless someone tells me I have to.
All right. All right, so old business. Zoom participation is on here simply because last time we had the conversation, we just said we would come back to it. It seemed like last time, Dawn and I were the only ones who were sort of excited about doing it for the main meetings. I still think it's a good idea to keep for the subcommittees, but I welcome any thoughts or discussion.
I am in for that.
I still think it's a good idea to do it for subcommittees, especially in light of some of the scheduling snafus we've had, trying to schedule all these meetings at different times.
Correct.
It's nice to have the option. I obviously prefer in person, but it's nice to have the option.
Are we talking about where to hold the meetings, or are we talking about audience participation?
We're just talking about, I just was saying for subcommittees, it's nice to have the option to be able to have remote if possible. With regards to our main meetings, we had worried that we can't just have it for public comment, right? We have to have it for everybody, in which case it becomes too much for Keith to handle the Zoom throughout the night.
Well, I think the public comment was the
thing.
reason to, but then it got bigger and more messy. Is that correct?
Well, it's just that you can't, I don't think you can limit, that's what I'm looking for. Yeah, I'm like, Lisa, I'm tired. Yeah, I don't think you can limit it to just a portion of the meeting. Either you're in or you're out. You know, it's we either go swimming or we stay on the shore.
Right, that's my understanding. It's either hybrid, in person, or remote. But you can't have the same meeting be
Two different things, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So if we open it up to remote participation for public comment, we open it up to remote participation for the entire duration of the meeting,
Which means somebody needs to manage the meeting.
which means somebody needs to manage the meeting, right? My personal opinion is we have so few visitors typically at a meeting, usually none. I don't see it becoming a problem. That being said, it could be.
I just feel like there's probably another way that we can solicit participation from the community without it being necessarily Zoom. Maybe it's like we put in our agenda that they can email questions that they want to have asked over the air, on air, potentially.
Like if they aren't able to make it in
If they're not able to
person.
make it.
Right, because that is the only piece of the meeting where the public participates.
Correct,
At
because
the
it's our
end of the
business
day,
meeting.
it's
our
a business
meeting.
meeting that is held in public, so.
Right.
But Catherine had touched on the points about like accessibility. That I think really needs to be more of like a higher, like state level question that I have not investigated because it's September and it's too crazy for me at the moment. It's something I'm happy to look into in November when it's fully.
Right now, I think we should just keep the Zoom option open for now. I think that's what I feel. Up until then, we can come back in November and decide whether we want to continue the way it is.
Yeah, I am in support of the Zoom options for both the subcommittee meetings and the general meeting. I think we don't have, to your point, the public participation part is pretty short in the beginning. And I think that if someone, got on the agenda with a presentation and had a compelling reason of why they wanted to do it over Zoom, I think it's rare and far between, and I want to make sure we're hearing from everyone.
And we do have the 2 minutes thing.
Yes.
So
I agree.
I'm not going to tell you how to vote. I'm just going to say if you decide to go that route, and we have been at a number of town hall meetings, as many of you have, where it is primarily the public on or someone asks a question, but the way they've been able to manage it is because they have paid.
Staff that manages.
Right, so we would have to think, I would want you to consider that piece. It would probably be having a stipend position or something for the meeting, so.
Could we just I mean, I hear what you're saying about how we can't just open it up for a portion of the meeting, but couldn't you open it up to Zoom for public comment and then just mute everybody and forget about it for the
Because
rest?
no one's allowed to talk except in public comment. Anyway.
Right. So couldn't you just mute it so that there wouldn't be any reason to manage it? If they're all muted, they can't.
So are you saying that you would never choose to be from home even if you were sick, which is something that was brought up, I believe, by Minnie the last time, that if somebody got sick, this way they could still be in the meeting, and that
Yeah.
all of a sudden, I can't mute, I mean,
The 7 of us?
Well, I think that's the accessibility. Let's just say, if we make it a hybrid meeting, does that mean if principals have a presentation to do and they have an access, that they now are zooming in? Which, as you know, that's what we've seen challenge when we've tried to do some of us that are presenting here and some there. So that's the issue. Once you open it up, then it's open to anybody that might have accessibility issues. So you have to be able to foresee that we might also have some of our team. I'm not saying I would, but there could be some members that request that option as well.
when we first went with, sorry, Amanda, I was going to say, when we first went remote, we opened up the world and we had people jumping in. Then we shut down the world while we were doing that, but unfortunately, it means I also had to shut down all of you as well. It's not a shutdown by person, it's either people can unmute themselves or people can't unmute themselves.
Right.
So that's the piece of this that's a challenge, so you do have to manage that. So, again, I'll be honest with you, I don't want to be, if I'm going to participate in the meeting, I either need to be on this side of the table or out there. It's not both.
So, can we not use the breakout room to basically manage the meeting? Like, for example, we have all 7 of us, I mean, if we are accessing it, create a breakout room where we are there, and then we only allow people to come into the breakout room, speak, and then they leave. And you can remove them personally, and then nobody in the main meeting, like,
Yeah, so then even though it's on HCAT, they still, if we allow the remote access, they are allowed to then just stay for the whole meeting and be there physically with everybody else. You can't separate
In
it.
fact, I'm not sure breakout rooms are legal for
Right, I was gonna say,
for
they're
public
not.
meetings. It's
How
either,
short of a period of time can we consider at a time? Like, could we say we will try it until December 31st, and if it ends up being a total disaster, we reassess?
Could we
That's
do
what I was
that,
thinking.
and instead of, I mean, could you or I take turns trying to manage it?
I
too?
said this last meeting, I ran classes for a
I can
year
do
on
it too.
remote
Yeah, I'm fine
I
with
would
that.
volunteer to take a
while I
turn,
was
too.
math teaching
Yeah, I can
mathematics.
volunteer to take turns as
Happy
well.
to do it.
I wouldn't want to spend money to do this, but I also would like to have that accessibility option.
Yeah, but I do Zoom every day, every single day. I'm good with that.
We don't find it difficult, it's more about if you're trying to be the presenter and,
Right.
Yeah, so I think most of the time we are not, like, we might be able to manage that way. We can try it. Why don't we give it a
I'm
try?
happy to do it. As long as I'm not also teaching math and keeping 26 kids occupied, I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, 3 volunteers already.
Is there,
It's only until March. They've only approved it through March.
Right.
Yeah.
So it might
and
cut
we
don't
off
even
at
have to
that
vote for
point.
this
People
to
don't,
March.
like, make every effort, like presenters, make
Right.
every
Right, I
effort
think
to be
that's
here,
the
like,
message, right?
yeah.
you know, it's the Blizzard of 2022, that's one thing, but like, let's,
I mean, if you have a blizzard, your town poles are
well,
going to be down
I know,
anyway.
but I
And we
just
can-
think it's important that, you know,
I think
To be
maybe try
present.
Yeah, I
a
think-
meeting first.
so I would-
Let's
I
just
would-
try a meeting, see how it runs.
So I would put a motion to keep this on till December,
Sure, how about through
Right.
the end of 2022?
end of 2022, and then come back and reassess.
And you can always reassess sooner if you need to.
Yes.
Right,
yeah.
second.
So, second. So.
All in favor? Great.
As long as I don't have to run it.
Okay. The code of conduct for town officials, this was carried over from last meeting. It's not ours, we don't need to discuss it. I need to know that you all saw it, and if you have any comments or anything that you want to share about it. It's not like it's optional. We all have to see it and sign it and send it back. So does anyone have any comments or thoughts on that at all? I think
Mine
it's,
only is that it's redundant to our own code of conduct, but I'm not, averse to it. I'm just, it's redundant to our own school committee code of conduct, that's all. Because we have one, but other departments may not, so.
Right, I think that's the thing.
And when does it have to be sent back by?
There wasn't even really a date. It was sort of like, can you discuss this with your
Okay.
meeting, with your committee as soon as you can at the next meeting, maybe, or the next one?
Yeah, I think they talked about the October, select board meeting? Didn't they talk about one of them?
There wasn't really a
But
hard date. It was.
I mean, it's going to go forward
Yeah.
because, like you said, they don't have one for the town, and we just apply to you as well then.
Thank you.
Alright. New business. Superintendent contract. Amanda, we were going to wait for you anyway to get here. So we spoke at length. This is why we were late coming back from our executive session. And so I'm going to say, I'm afraid I'm going to say this incorrectly, so I'm going to say it with Dawn, but Dr. Kuska, we would like to offer you a 3-year contract that is separate than an extension. This is a new contract. And with that new contract, we're going to examine the contract itself and have a collaborative discussion about what it's going to look like. Dawn, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I
The
think.
date?
Right. Well, you're going to want a motion for that. And then what we had talked about was having an additional meeting to talk about the provisions. And
Provisions is what I was trying to say.
so I would expect that, what is that, an executive session meeting at the next October 13th General School Committee meeting.
And this will be something that we co-construct with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So I would like to entertain a motion to extend, to extend the offer for a new contract for Dr. Kuska beginning in
July 1st.
July of 2023. Sorry, I have to think about the dates.
Yeah.
And extending 3 years forward from 2023, so it would be 2026.
Thank you.
To June 30th. We have to say the actual dates, I think.
To June.
July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2026. Second.
Oh, you moved it.
Oh, I moved it, sorry. Stacey, you second it.
Moved by Cynthia, seconded by Stacy. All in favor?
I think this is a roll call.
It's a roll call.
Roll call.
Yes.
Mrs. Bigelow?
Yes.
Mrs. Stebbins?
Yes.
Mrs. Raffi?
Yes.
Mrs. Goshen?
Yes.
Ms. Naborski?
Yes.
Ms. Gupta?
Yes.
And myself, Ms. Farr? Yes.
Congratulations.
All right. The MASC, MASS conference. Cynthia, this was your item on the agenda, so why don't you?
Oh, I just forwarded you the resolution. We just have to have someone who represents the school committee as a delegate. So I don't know who else is going to the MASC, MASS conference besides me and Stacy. Is there anybody else on the committee that's going?
I'm going to go.
Okay, so you need to vote a delegate who will be there to vote on behalf of the school committee on the resolutions. I would nominate Catherine. Totally. Just for the record, I have been the delegate most of the years I've been on the committee, so I'm happy to hand it off.
So
I'm happy to do it.
It's really just sitting through one session and voting.
It is, and
some of
voting.
us are registered. I don't know if you're registered yet. Can you let
Yeah,
me
I'll
know
try.
which days and email
What
Lisa?
days
Because
are
we just
those?
want to make sure we get you on the list because I forget what days.
Second or
Second,
third?
third, fourth,
Yeah.
Remember?
yes.
And it might only be one day or the whole thing. Is that how it goes? I think it's one day or the whole.
And just if there is illness or absence for any reason, do we have a backup? How does that work, guys? Have you ever had an issue? You've never
been an issue.
I'll go if you can't go.
Okay. And then will we know what the resolution is by October 13th, at our October 13th meeting?
They have the resolutions already posted of what they're looking at.
Should we add it to the agenda for October 13th, just so we're all aware of it prior to your vote, which is going to be in November?
Sure.
Maybe for the November meeting, if we can just have, like, as a discussion point, some of the seminars that you attend and for everybody, whoever ends up going, and kind of like a what you learned from it.
Yeah, that would be really helpful. This is my first time going, and I don't know that we've ever had a report out, or is there a
We
presentation?
usually just
Just an
share.
update,
Yeah.
you know.
It's an update that we just shared.
But if you have notes or anything, that would be helpful. From past conferences, that would be helpful, and I'll certainly take them wherever I am. I tend to do that anyway, so so that we're all informed of what's happening and that sort of thing.
While you're thinking of October 13th, I want to make sure we put on that we're doing, I'll do an update on the DESI targeted review as well.
Just one additional, I think in April, we had talked about, I'm sorry, maybe the initial information came out in April, this is for like next time, but the Metro West Adolescent Health Survey, and we were going to come back with some of the full data and some recommendations. Is that something we expect to be able to report on and discuss at the October meeting?
I think, well, we're still working on presentations. I need to talk with Catherine again and Joni, because we were trying to get our school improvement plans done sooner. Sometimes we've held those, so I have those on for October. And I put Jariel's presentation in, which would include Metro West, in November. But that's not set in stone, so I think we just need to decide which makes more sense.
And you also have the tiered focus monitoring.
Right, that's-
In October
Yeah.
also.
So we need to take a look at the presentations, and then I'm going to meet with the team tomorrow, and then I'll circle back with Catherine to see if we want to shift some of that, because I'm looking at this list now, and it could be a long night for everybody.
All right. Well, it's already a long night for a lot of us, so I think we're going to not do the executive session tonight. If that's okay, we'll do the those topics at another time.
Yep.
Does anybody have any items of information or anything else to add? Anyone?
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded by Cynthia.
Moved by Stacy, seconded by Cynthia. All in favor?
Yes.
But I just got here.
Amanda's ready for
Welcome
Are you wide awake? What time do you start in the morning?